There's Kevin with RogueDeckbuilder.com here with another episode of the Market Whenever. This was going to be Market Monday, but this topic I've already sort of touched on, and it just kept changing and changing and changing hourly with the outlook on the Iconic Masters. So I'm just going to update everyone with a little bit of information from my end as in kind of the Magic the Gathering finance community, as well as having a store myself and knowing just the amount of number of Iconic Masters that is out there. So I want to give a warning to everyone about this set. I kind of consider this to be Chronicles 2.0. Well, not quite Chronicles as being something that has like a really unlimited print run for a few years, which is what was the major problem with Chronicles that led to the reserve list. But that it's very similar to Chronicles, that a lot of the cards from Chronicles actually didn't have a lot of demand at the time. It was just reprinting obscure cards, and that people, there was a lot of Legends, Antiquities, Arabian Nights type cards that the supply of those were so low that Chronicles, when they printed it, it quadrupled, probably 10-20 fold of how many of those existed in their original printings. So that is something that I think is with Magic, it's kind of an illusion. Like, the whole reason a lot of these cards in Iconic Masters were expensive to begin with was because of the extremely low supply. We're talking about, look at these ones right here that are kind of starting to stabilize off though, but even the cards like the Grove of the Burn Wheels, the Auric Champion, to the point, Consecrated Sphinx, these cards just had incredibly low supply compared to their rare and mythic counterparts in newer sets. So everything Return to Ravnica forward is in its own classification of rarity. The mythics are more like rares from other sets, and the rares are more like uncommons, or even less than that from older sets pre-Return to Ravnica. And that's why we've seen prices from post-Return to Ravnica those cards are hard to rares are very tough to get over the $10 mark. Mythics are really tough to stabilize over the $20-$25 mark. Of course, we've seen exceptions, but they didn't last. They didn't last like Jason the Mind Sculptor, staying at that $100 mark for quite some time. Thoughtseas and the Fetch lands, people thought were going to be the next huge booms, and they did sort of go up, but Thoughtseas has always going around that $15 to $20 mark, and now that it's getting reprinted is crashing very quickly. So going back to my original thing, low supply and even low demand, but even lower supply can still have a card that can increase in value up to really high marks. And let's just take Auric Champion for example. Look at the other printing of it from the fifth dawn, which has crashed a lot. But Auric Champion, I would say, is something with moderate to low demand. It went in a few decks, mainly black-white tokens in Modern, as well as some Soul Sisters builds. I think that more people should be playing Auric Champion because it's a phenomenal job against black and red decks. But you can see that it went from a $13 card all the way up to a $40 card, and this is mainly due to the low supply. As soon as Iconic Masters gets reprinted, it just completely crashes in value. And that's my big warning about Iconic Masters, is this is the norm, not the exception. That most of these cards in this set are low demand, low supply cards that it felt like the Wizards just like, oh, this needs a reprint, let's chuck it in this set. And that is bad news going forward if that's going to be the kind of the mentality of Wizards. So I would say, since the huge influx of players with Return to Ravnica, statistics said we went from like 10 to 12 to 15 to as high estimates as 20 million. Now we have the active player estimate down to 12 million again. So we either had a huge plateau in Magic or a huge exodus. One or the two. Neither one of those are really good for the growth of Magic the Gathering. So I think that having these high reprints of cards, these more low supply cards, the timing is really off with this, especially since we already had a master set just 6 months ago, and we have another master set in the next 6 months. So it's just going to be too much volume of these low demand, moderate to low demand cards going from low supply to what I'd say, moderate to even high supply. And it's really concerning because it does look like Chronicles 2.0. So let's just check out Iconic Masters right now. You can see that this is typical for the new set. Usually the top winners, top losers, when a new set comes out, the losers, of course, will outstretch the winners, because especially in a reprint set, because it's just more supply entering, and it'll take a long time for demand to catch up to the supply. One of the other things they did with Iconic Masters is downshifted a lot of the rarities. So people that had any sort of sanguine bonds or assault formation money in those, although their value of those cards are completely obliterated. So I still like Iconic Masters. It has some cards that I think are just good. This is the perfect set if you're going to tournaments. Pick up the draft trash. Like these Wrench Mines within a few years will go back up in value. Same thing with the Thought Scour type cards. And I wish I was at some big event and could just, you know, bring a bucket around and just go around the tables and pick up everything in draft trash, because these are actually cards that are very tradable on services like CardSphere, or if, like me, you have a local game store yourself, or if you're a high volume trader in person, these type of cards are tradable. One of the things that I went from back to, I've told the story many times, but my whole collection was stolen. Let's be Reddit and victim blame here. I had my dog in my car. My dog had a tumor in his, it was blocking his large intestine. And so he was literally starving to death. And I was trying to afford getting surgery for my dog. And I was taking him around to different local game stores, and we had to go to the vet for a checkup just to see, you know, what we could do in the meantime. So anyway, I had left a window cracked and forgotten about it, parked in my driveway, and someone reached in the window, unlocked the doors, and stole all of my cards that I had left in my car, because we were going to local game stores to see how much I could piece out the set. Long story short, the whole reason I'm saying this is I just read another Reddit post. It was absolute garbage. It was just about someone that lost had their stuff locked in their trunk, and someone busted a window, opened the trunk, and took it. And it was just a total victim blame. And I can't stand victim blaming. It's the stupidest thing ever, because yes, people can be more careful, but why? Why, you know, kind of rub more salt on someone's wound when, you know, I think that you should expect your stuff to be secure if it's locked in a car. I mean, it takes a person, takes someone to come break into the car. And that's the behavior we should be addressing, not you're a careless person. I can't stand that. It's tend to me, let's just break off a little psychology. People that victim blame, I actually do think have a little bit of a sociopath tendencies, or just, you know, I just think they lack empathy, because if you go the leap from, oh, it's your fault for being the victim, or it serves you right, which is what a lot of those comments have to say. It just shows to me that the empathy is just either lacking, or I don't know. That's just my own opinion. I'm going to start a whole psychology channel one of these days, because I think it's something I'm still very interested in, and it'll give me a break from the tediousness of Magic. But anyway, let's go back away from that. Let's go back to my story. Oh wow, I'm tangenting today, big time. So I lost my entire collection. My friends convinced me to get back in on Avacyn Restored, and right after that I bought an event deck that had a birthing pod in it. Avacyn Restored had a Restoration Angel in it, and I had a little green-white birthing pod deck with just picking up some of the uncommon splicers and the rare blade splicers. It cost me like a total of like $15. I ended up winning 4 FNMs in a row. The promo at the time was Lingering Souls. Was able to trade the Lingering Souls off for $12 a piece. Picked up like an Elish Norn, picked up a Wormcoil Engine, and then I had pretty good green-white pod deck that got me back into Standard. And then I started power trading, and one of the things that I would do is I was the only person that would bring uncommons and commons in my trade binder. And it was, if you actually went back in the day, it was Star City Games was the gold standard, and a lot of their commons and uncommons were 15 or 25 cents. And some of them even had higher value. Cards like Lightning Strike type cards, sometimes on Star City Games, they'd sell for 50 cents just because it was something they could move. And so I would be trading those all day long and just trading up and trading up. And pretty soon I had a nice little collection again, which then when I moved to Richfield, it was a good little collection to then start a game store with. So long story short, I started buying people's bulk too, and then that's how I was trading people with cards. Is these things have real world value, and it's something that is a niche. You can be that niche in the community to have these cards in stock. Just think about if you were able to keep those from the, let's check out like one of the Modern Masters sets. Let's go to geez. old Modern Masters 2013, click over here on the commons, and you can see that a lot of these do have some pretty decent value. We have a bunch of cards around the 50-cent mark, all the way from Ethereum Sculptor up to Street Wraith, which is a $6 card. If we actually look at Street Wraith, when it first was released again, it was way cheap, down to that 80-cent mark, and then, of course, went up. So it looks like it's having a free fall right now. It's probably because Death Shadows decks are on the downturn in Modern. And same thing with Living End. Both of those that this card went in is starting to not see as much play. But anyway, I digress. There is value, though, in picking up those cards. So anyway, let's go back to the original topic at hand now that I've rambled and rambled and rambled. So this is a scary set because let's go over here and check the value of it. It started off good, and this is when I was saying, wow, Iconic Masters actually looks like in between Modern Masters 2 and Modern Masters 3. Well, that value is completely evaporated, and that's what I expected when you have the low supply and the low demand cards. Because the value of those cards are kind of an illusion, as I've stated before. So Mana Drain, of course, was a very expensive card. I do think this one's going to hold its value because Mythics do hold their value a little bit better, but the same thing. Mana Drain has lost a good $40 since its peak of how much it was pre-selling for, and even the Legends card, I mean, this is the Legends card, peaked out around $229 and it has been steadily going down from its peak here. So yes, it probably does have demand, and this is kind of what a card that I like to call a self-policing card. What I mean by that is once Mana Drain gets to a certain value, then people will pick it up for the commander decks. We have a person at our store that will only buy cards $5 and under. He will not spend more than $5 on a card for his commander deck, and let's call him Jeffrey. So Jeffrey will come in and Jeffrey will say, I want this card, and we'll say, well, it's $8. And then he won't buy it because that's above his price point. And this actually seems to be the norm with people in Magic the Gathering. Everyone has a little bit of Jeffrey in them. My Jeffrey is probably around 35. I won't put a deck in a commander deck if it's over 35. But as soon as Mana Drain hit a $35 price tag, oh, I'll chuck it in every blue deck. So the same can be said with other cards like that. So I think that Mana Drain is going to have a self-policing that once it gets around, I would even say if it gets below $70, then people will be like, oh, that's my Jeffrey range. I'm going to throw it in a deck, and then the demand will start to outstretch the supply at that price point. So that's some good news about Mana Drain. I don't know where the Jeffrey zone is, but it's probably around that $50 to $75 mark. So we also saw cards like Horizon Canopy, which is the second most expensive card. This is the card that is just having a free fall. And they're actually lucky that this is seeing play in some of the humans variants. And some of the other decks are just starting to pick this up. I think actually in Modern, more decks would run this if it didn't have that insane price tag of when it was in Future Sight. It almost got up to like, what, $80 at one point with Future Sight? $95 was how much it got up at one time. With the Horizon Canopy. But again, this is more just the low supply because it was out of Future Sight, which is incredibly low. Iconic Masters will have much more supply than all of Future Sight. And it is in a huge free fall. And this held a lot of the value of Iconic Masters because not only was it a high price point card, it was a rare, and rares are a lot more common than Mythics are. So Mana Drain, comparing it to Mana Drain, Horizon Canopy holds a lot more of the value of the set. Then we have Flusterstorm at a rare. This one is also having a nice little free fall. It's halved its value and it's continuing to go down. We have Aether Vial, which I like it the most. This is the only one that has stabilized off because it is actually what I consider a high demand card in Modern compared to the rest of them. This is a commander slash a legacy card. I don't believe it's in Modern. No, it's not in Modern. Aether Vial, though, is running a ton of decks, and then Cryptic Command. So if you take away all the low demand, low supply card, we're stuck with like Aether Vial, Cryptic Command, and Visions, and Thoughtseize, which would be like the more high demand cards in Modern that have the demand. And then we have a lot of cards that are going to take a while for Commander to outstretch the supply. Now, I do have a video series talking about all of the cards that I am currently targeting for Iconic Masters. I think I'm going to have to redo it. My computer or my program crashed in the middle of editing and I lost 2 hours of work. That's the worst feeling ever when you are creating a video. That's why I do a lot of point and shoot videos nowadays, just because the editing is just so time consuming. But anyway, so I think I'm going to have to redo the video at this point, because it's I recorded it on Monday, and a lot of these prices have completely changed since Monday, so I'm going to have to redo the entire video on the price points. But I think there are a lot of goodies in this deck. But I think now, with the knowledge that I have about how much Iconic Masters is out there, oh wow, this again looks like Chronicles 2.0. So we originally could have got 24 booster boxes from Wizards. I had an insanely hard time pre-selling them. I think we only end up getting 12, so half our allotment is all we ended up getting, just because I finally ended up, I was trying to pre-sell at matching eBay price, no takers. Someone did buy 2 of them at a reasonable profit margin value. And then I reached out to people on Patreon and said, how about 175? Had a few more people buy in at 175. And then we bought in for our store. But I don't think that we didn't really have anyone pre-buy at our store either. So it was just one of those things that it comes the day of. Yes, some people do want them. Yes, we're actually selling packs quite good at our store with the Iconic Masters. But it's just something with all the other product coming out right now, we couldn't just sink a ton of money into this particular set. And now, so we only bought half our lot now. And so I wake up tonight, or I wake up this morning and see a notification from Wizards saying we can get an additional 24. Our distributor also has a bazillion. We currently can buy a ton from our distributor. I would say probably like 40 to 50 because they're in the same boat. They just have ample amount of product. And there's rumors saying that even further down the road towards Christmas, there might be another allotment of Eternal Master or Iconic Masters being released from Wizards end. So right from the WPN. To make matters worse, Walmart has this product. Yes, Target and Walmart have this product. They're selling this for 3 for $32 for Iconic Masters and what they call these little Iconic Masters bundles. So that's something that is a new precedent. We've never seen master sets outside of the local game stores. This is a whole rant for another day. Local game stores, I think, are just going to get murdered in 2019. It's like, I don't consider myself a legitimate local game store. What is legitimate? We have a brick and mortar store, but we don't survive off of the success of Gone Rogue Games. Gone Rogue Games is more like a hobby. It's something that we do. We're only open from 3 to 8, so 5 hours a day. It's just because after work, we open up the store so that people have a place to play. It's just kind of like my hangout spot. I mean, it doesn't feel like work to me because, it's where I'd be hanging out anyway. If there was a local game store in my community, from 3 to 8, a lot of days I'd probably be down there playing cards because that's just my hobby. And so it's just, I don't think that other game stores can have that mentality, because I think that someone is going to be eating off of going to be living off of the profits of their game store. It's going to be their full-time job. It's going to be their business. And they don't have the same insanely low rent or kind of the brand name around it where I have an outlet to sell. And this type of set is just going to kill them when Walmart has it, and they're not going to be able to meet their margins that they need to meet to cover their overhead. A lot of people do not understand margins in retail. You must, like Magic the Gathering, board games already have a pretty terrible margin, about 45%. So that means that if you buy a product and sell it at MSRP, your profit margin is only around 45%. This is extremely low for the industry. If you look at electronics, they're much, 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 much higher. We're talking 60, 70, 80%. If you look at other, consumer goods, like even go beyond electronics, like I used to work for Sears, the profit margin on those were really, really good for like refrigerators and lawnmowers and all those type of stuff. They were much higher, and you had a lot higher profit chunk you'd get from the manufacturers. Then you go, even look at other consumer goods. You look at restaurants, food costs always around 18 to 23%. You want to be as low as possible. That means they're making a net profit of what, 72%, and between 65 and 72%, or 80. No, yeah, 88. No, yeah, 72%, 78% would be if they had a 12% margin. So yeah, so 18 to 72% profit margin on that. Yes, they do. Restaurants notoriously have a lot more overhead because they have to pay more premium for like good retail space, as well as they have to have bigger areas to have the tables, and they have to usually have a higher staff of cooks, waiters, and people just running the business. So they have a huge overhead, so they need those. Can't be just run by like a mom and pop thing with like 2 people like a card store can, but their margins are much better. So with margins already low with Magic the Gathering stores, this is just it is a disaster waiting to happen. So we've already talked about how these eBay stores, I saw Unglued being, or Unhinged, Unglued, what's the last one? Unstable, being sold at $82 a booster box, and I can't make sense of that math. $82 shipped means that you're going to pay the $6 shipping. Well, they have free shipping and $82 means that they're paying the shipping, which is $6 off of that. Which you already get boxes at 76, so there's the profit margin gone. And then eBay and PayPal are going to take another 10.5 to 11.5%, or even higher. It's like it ends up being around 13% of your overall sale goes to them, goes to eBay, goes to PayPal. And so with the most conservative math possible at $82 a booster box, which I was seeing those being pre-sold, they're losing $9 per box on getting directly from Wizards at $76. So I don't know how they're doing it unless they have some deal with some distributor where they're getting boxes at a much lower price. How that is profitable, I don't know. But what that's going to end up doing, it's putting everyone now is price shopping on eBay. They're thinking the MSRP is now what eBay says it is. That's if you sell anything over what eBay does, you have your customers screaming bloody murder at you. And it's just a disaster for local game stores. I don't know how any of them are going to survive unless they're kind of like mine or kind of like other people that I know, that it's more of a skeleton operation. It's the minimum. We run the minimum amount to be a WPN and hold tournaments and be successful in that venue. So it's going to be very, very tough going forward. And traditionally, sets like Iconic Masters used to be the whole reason to be open as a local game store. You would get these products that were supposed to be exclusive. You could sell them off, make a good profit, and that would keep you alive for the rest of the year. So it's scary. It's insanely scary right now with this being at Walmarts and Targets, with our allotment being very, very high, with the amount of people not pre-ordering, not pre-selling, and now with the prices crashing. So let's get back to Chronicles 2.0, why I say you can see that this started off at somewhere in between Modern Masters 2 and Modern Masters 3, as the estimated value is close to that. You can see that it came out the gates better than Eternal Masters, but Eternal Masters stabilized at 614, and it's gone slightly up to 645. That's also a bad sign that this master set has taken this long to recover. And actually, I don't need it's at least stabilized, at least flatlined out, and we can see cards like Force of Will, which is an insanely demand card, at $80, and Mana Crypt at $80, and Jace is still going down. We do have some legacy tournaments that have been coming out, will be coming out in 2018. They could pump these up. But yeah, a lot of these cards, a lot of the most expensive rares are $27. So that I think is kind of and that's a very, very high demand card too. So I think that's kind of the baseline that we have to work for the Iconic Masters. So Iconic Masters though has now started to have its slow death here of almost $100 cheaper than Eternal Masters. And all of these are in a free fall, and the rares still have a lot of price to drop. The Aether Vial and Cryptic Command I expect to be down to the $25 mark when all is said is done. Cryptic Command a little bit lower, and then same thing with the Ancestral Visions. All of those I think will be between the $15 and $20 mark. Look at Thoughts; he's already dropping down to $15 for this art that everyone does want. Rather than the Theros art, we have cards like Consecrated Sphinx that have a lot of high demand, and the Archangel Avacyn that have high demand in Modern or in Commander. continue to free fall just because there's just too much of this product out there. So I still expect another, I would say 25 to 30% drop in this, which puts this down to an abysmal comparison to the Eternal Masters and the Modern Masters. So the same thing can be said about Modern Masters. We were all worried. This had another typical thing where they dropped too much product on us. So they kind of hoodwinked us with, I remember this quite clearly. They told us this was our allotment, then doubled it, and it fell down. But again, it settled down to about 650. And then it went back up because we had a huge, this was a good time for Magic the Gathering, this Oath the Gatewatch. You can check out a lot of Commander staples as well as Modern staples had a good, these were good months, January through April of 2016. But then again, it started to flatline out and then started to go back up because a lot of these cards actually are seeing heavy play, like the Mox Opal and the Karn Liberated in the Modern format that helped the price of this card. So this is scary. This is scary with the Iconic Masters being this low. I think this is just the perfect storm for too many reprints out there with an exodus of players. So the influx of player isn't like overcompensating for just the amount of product being out there. Just buyer's fatigue in general. We have Eternal Masters that is still quite recent. I mean, you can still find Eternal Masters boxes for MSRP, and hasn't gone up in value. And with Modern Masters 2017 that came out this year, and we have other thing, and then we have another one in the 25 in March, I believe is when it is. It's just it's the buyer's fatigue is very, very real. This could be the set. This, I don't know. I've been talking to a lot of finance people, and we're all pretty nervous about this set. Now, of course, this does bring opportunities, and I'll be trying to do a video that talks more about this, where a lot of these cards are just a gold mine if they do like completely bottom out and go down to just obscene prices, because tons of them do have a lot of value or a lot of play in Commander. Cards like the Sarah Ascendant, cards like Bloodghast in Modern, or Shielder the Whispering One. This is about as iconic in Commander as possible. Glimpse of the Unthinkable. This is always a card that goes up in value whenever a mill card is printed. Same thing, Archangel Thune has a lot of Modern and Commander play. The Consecrated Sphinx is one of the most iconic cards in Commander. These are all good cards to get in on if they do bottom out more and more and more and more. But it's going to take a while, I think, for these cards to recover. And then all the other stuff coming out, oh boy, this is a scary time. So what's the solution for this? I think the solution for this is to Wizards to step back on their reprints for 2018. Plateauing off, or maybe just a slight exodus of players, like is natural. The ebb and flow of a competitive game happens. We've seen it with Hearthstone like crazy, where people leave the game, then come back to the game. Look at World of Warcraft. That was one that had a massive master player influx, and then probably one of the greatest exoduses of players that a game has ever seen. But they've been able to at least have a pretty stable community for a good long while. I mean, WoW's been out for a long time, and they've just been able to kind of ride that ebb and flow quite well. So I think Wizards needs to do that. I think they just need to accept they're going down to a downturn and try to figure out the reasoning for that. Poor marketing, I think that's a huge problem. MTGO is still a terrible product if you compare it to other games. I've talked about in the past with how to fix MTGO. They should do kind of like how Dota has a compendium where you can actually work towards things, or if they want to have players play more obscure cards or not play tier 1 decks, they should give incentives to do so. So kind of like an achievement. If you, say, kill a person with a specific card, you get an achievement unlocked and gain player points or whatnot. Like, all of those things could be done. MTGO is just a disgrace in if you compare it to other games, other similar games. And I think that they're banking too much on Arena without any sort of good. A lot of people are so concerned of what that means for MTGO. And if people lose all their value in MTGO, by damn, they're not going to be investing in MTG Arena. So there's a lot of like miscommunication from Wizards to its player base. They tend to be trying to bank on a specific vision for players, for their player base, which I think is unrealistic. I'm not going to get into the can of worms that is, but let's just keep it at there. If you see it's just rubbing people the wrong way, and they tend not to care about a lot of people that are currently invested in their game, which is that is business 101. You do not want to disenfranchise your already enfranchised player in hopes for this silver lining down the road, this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that could or could not ever happen. I think you need to cater to the players you already have rather than try for something else. So the perfect storm is here. I don't want to be someone crying doomsday. I think my outlook for Wizards is not going to die off within the next few years. It's still going to, but the plateau does seem to be failing. It does seem to be going from a plateau back down to a downturn to, which is sad because 2017 was one of the most phenomenal years in Magic. So I don't know. That's my warning to you. Lastly, but not least, I have so many Iconic Masters. Does anyone? I might. The thing is, if you want Iconic Masters, email me quickly, because we are so strapped on cash with ordering a lot of the Christmas board games, ordering all the. It's just a bad time for us. Like, if Wizards would have done this in January, when we'd have our nice little Christmas influx of cash, because this is how it happens for retail, especially some of the gaming community, is you go bankrupt in your, you spend all of your money right before Christmas time, and then because you need as much stock as possible, and then you don't buy product after about now, and then you reap the rewards. Everything sells out of your store, and then you get the come January, you have excess cash to just throw at things. And so I don't have the excess cash at the moment to buy all of our allotment of the Eternal Masters. We're still a growing store. Capital is something that that's the main thing that we do struggle with is, you start a store with very little. It takes a while to get over those humps of having the capital to buy everything. We're consistently investing back into the products. But this time around, we just do not have the demand or just the ability to buy all our products. So I'm reaching back out to my own community here. If this is something you're interested in, if you want to have Iconic Masters at pretty low prices, if you're willing to buy, a significant portion of that, pay for shipping, throw a little bit back at us, name me a price. Name me a price and I'll email it back if that is good enough. I know Rudy already has said that he will buy every Iconic Masters for $150, including the fees from a PayPal. If you were to PayPal the money, which is at 2.4%, as well as shipping, he'll cover the shipping and that. So beat Rudy's offer, and I'll be glad to ship you off some boxes. And much appreciated whatever else you can throw our way if you enjoy the content. So of course, patrons have first dibs. Go over to patreon.com/Rogue Deckbuilder if you're interested in supporting the Rogue Deckbuilder channel. I know this video has just been insanely rambly. I didn't have a script for this at all. Kind of gone off on tangents, but yeah. Anyway, if you're interested in getting cheap products of this, we have access to about 30 more of these. But we need to know ASAP, because with Wizards, that can change at any time. They are the most fickle company ever. We've gone to order stuff before. So one of the times we sold out of Commander, 2016? We sold a bunch. So we're like, oh, so we look at Wizards like, okay, sweet, we can still order from them. So then we went and pre-sold some more. We're like, okay, we'll tack it on to our next order. We'll buy 10 more complete sets of Commander 2016, and then we went to order, and then that day Wizards took it off and said, you're out of luck. And we're like, oh, are you kidding me? So just keep in mind that there is a little bit of risk involved, but of course, if it does, we can just refund you that, and no harm, no foul. So let me know if anyone's interested in that. Yeah, any other comments about the state of Magic? It is scary. There's a huge divide in the community. I tend to say that I'm a pretty centrist person, so I can see both sides to most arguments. But it seems like there's just an all-out war now, and it's just scary with that. How we've seen what it's happened to the comic industry, the gaming industry, where it's just created huge divides, and that's never good for business. So I don't know. I'm not going to get into it though. It's a can of worms. Definitely in the comment section below, let me tell you if you think this is Chronicles 2.0 or if I'm just being a little bit too scared about the bearish market ahead of us. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckbuilder.com. Thanks for watching.